remember, a lot of people will say that, well, I'm not a Nestorian, and they, with good will and intention, do not intend to be a Nestorian, but they might still have elements in their theology that are Nestorian. Maybe they don't even know it, right? So to be really clear on what Nestorianism is in the Orthodox view, according to Ephesus, it's defined as a dual subject Christology. So any kind of dual subject Christology counts as Nestorianism. And when I make that argument, I'm typically, not always, but I'm typically talking about the Reformed, the classical Reformation view of what happened on the cross. And if you believe in, this idea of the penal sanctions being poured out upon Christ, which is the classical Reformation view, then that's going to be, by implication, either Arian or Nestorian, depending on which way you go with it. So in my view, that tells us that the Reformed view of the tome is simply not true. But in other ways, the way I argue that Calvinism and the Reformed view as Nestorian is that there's no, if you don't have the doctrine, if you don't have the teaching of the Fifth and the Sixth Council, which is that the humanity of Christ is deified by the uncreated energies, then you don't have a true union. I mean, you can say all day long, Chalcedon and Leo, but that's not the last. Like, there's more to it than that. The Fifth Council is an answer to and a specification of what happened at Chalcedon, because Chalcedon didn't say enough about the nature of the union in the sense of the person of the Logos who has the human nature and what his relationship to the human nature is. That's what the Fifth Council covers. And the Fifth Council is very clear, utilizing the terminology of the Leontii, that the humanity of Christ is deified because it's inhypostatic. It exists in the mode of the Logos who assumed it. And then it makes very clear in the Sixth Council, which gets more specific about this, that the uncreated energy of the Logos deifies the human nature that he assumed. Now, that was already stated in Ephesus, but there's a lack of clarity between the time of Ephesus to Chalcedon as to what exactly the union is and what exactly is going on. So in other words, at the Fifth Council, this is called the Neo-Kyrillic view. So the Fifth and the Sixth Councils reaffirm and restate the Kyrillian interpretation of Chalcedon, that you have to see it primarily as a union of the person of the Logos that deifies the human nature. And that's stated specifically in the Sixth Council. And there is no Calvinist that I've ever heard of who talks about the uncreated energies of the Logos deifying the human nature, because at Ephesus, Cyril makes this argument from the Eucharist, and certainly a Calvinist is not going to make that argument.